Okay, so so today we're going to be talking a lot about maybe recapping some things that we did and just going through some issues that I know a lot of you were having, especially with the animated map, and just talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about the mini project. I'm going to introduce that to you and explain what it is, what we're doing, and what I expect from you. And also, I especially as I was trying to help many of you during the animated code errors, I was noticing some little things on like different people's computers as far as like things that I think, if you do differently can be more helpful for you. So we're going to be talking about some tips as well as relates to that. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to talk about today is start with the issue of the animated map that lots of you were having. So to tell you the truth, when I go through and develop these scripts, I first develop the complete script, and then, if I have any issues, I fix them on my side. And when I share with you the partial scripts, there shouldn't be any errors in that script. And this error that some of you, I guess, I mean, I don't know if all of you were having it, but I know for sure some of you, a good number of you were having. Um, it was something that it did not pop up on my side, and I could not reproduce that same error on my side, which made me think that was probably a difference from me to some of you related to either script or maybe data or maybe package installation or even like operating system differences that are kind of beyond what we could troubleshoot. And I went through yesterday with some of you trying to troubleshoot different aspects of it, and none of it worked. So to be quite frank, I don't know what is causing that issue. And especially because it's not happening on my side, it's more difficult for me to troubleshoot, on someone else's computer. So my initial, at the end or almost at the end of yesterday, my thought was to come in today and say, you know what, if that chunk is not working for you, you're getting that error that a lot of you are getting, just go ahead and delete that chunk and just keep going. I'm not going to expect you to do that in a mini project if it's not working on your side. And then Shakar, I know a lot of you were playing around with that code trying to make it work, and Shakar actually found what specifically was causing the error, which was when we were adding the county names, so the labels on the plot. So Shakar reported that if he just either deleted this part here, or maybe if you just comment off, like by adding the hashtag to deactivate that, that seemed to work. Of course, you're not going to get the county names, but it's better to have an animated map without county names than not have one altogether. So I guess with that, I just want to first ask, was because I know those of you that were not being able to run the animated map because you reached out, but I don't know others if they were not able to run and didn't reach out, or if you were, or if some of you were actually able to run it. So I just wanted to ask just to get a feeling for that. Was anyone in class actually able to run the animated um, code? In, in Griffin, was someone able to run it?
No, even the complete version wasn't working.
Okay. In Tifton, was someone able to get that animated map to run?
No, we couldn't get the animated, but we could get the interactive.
Okay. And in Athens, was someone able to get the animated one?
No, no, Dr. Bastrov. Same like interactive works, but animated doesn't work.
Man, that's crazy. Okay. So yeah, so I guess, originally again I was going to suggest for you to simply delete that chunk of the animated map. But since Shakar found a partial solution for it, which again is you can go ahead and, well, I guess let me just run everything above and get to here. So, I have, let me just do this. I have my, again, 02 NAS project open. I have my complete script open here. It doesn't have to be the complete one. It could be your partials if you were able to follow along in class. But if you just run all above, that. See. Oh, I changed something when I was trying to troubleshoot yesterday. So let me just fix that. Okay. So I'm just running all above.
You got it? No. It's just about the pictures, like the images of different years.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I've just tried like how Shaker did it, to remove that part, to comment that part. But what it has done is it has just brought me like images based on years, but not animations.
So you're getting another error when you do that?
No, I'm not getting an error, but I'm not getting the animation. Instead, I'm getting different images, which probably are based on years.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. It basically produced like 10 or 15 PNGs,
Yes.
but all of them are separate.
So it doesn't like, so let me show on my side if I do that. So if I just delete the adding county names here, or I'm not going to delete, I'm just going to comment them off. And if I run it, let's just see what happens on my side. So this doesn't happen for you? Doesn't pop up on the side?
No.
It worked, Dr. Vastas. If I remove that chunk, it worked.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of, again, I think there may be some of the packages that, so this package is called GG Animate and is a super cool package if you ever want to do any animated plots, even like, doesn't even have to be maps, but just any plot is really cool to look into. But I think that's probably something, because I know that like SF objects are a little bit trickier to animate. That's why we installed the transformer package. And so maybe there's some interaction between GG Animate and SF objects being animated that is behaving differently in different computers. And it's just kind of difficult to just to troubleshoot what that is really, why that is. So what I would say for now, is if you're able to run it without, like if you either comment off with the hashtags or if you delete the adding county names part as Shekar found, and if that worked for you, if you can still see the animation on the side, please go ahead and do that. Don't bother about county names. If you're still getting issues, if it's producing PNGs or whatever it is, I think you can just forget about it. And if that is the case, so if it's not working altogether for you, you would have to basically delete this chunk. And the reason for that is, oops, just that chunk, right? So not everything else. The reason for that is so even though I'm not going to, if you're not able to do this in class, I'm not going to require you to do an animated map for the mini project. However, I will require for you to submit as a rendered HTML. And the thing is, when you render, it's good. What it does, it basically runs all of your chunks, produces the output, and puts that into the HTML. So if it when it's rendering, if it finds a chunk that creates an error, it's basically gonna abort rendering right there, and it's not gonna create the HTML, which we don't want, right? So if you have any chunks that produce errors when you run individually, that chunk will abort rendering. And again, for now, if you're not being able to reproduce the animated map, even without the counting names, just delete this chunk and keep going. Now, for those of you that were able to run the animated map like I have here, I had a question yesterday about, okay, cool. Now, how can I export this? Or can that only be shown as HTML? So in the case of the GIF or GIF, it has this function here called nmsave coming from the ggAnimate package that works very similarly to the ggsave function. Of course, ggsave works with ggplots, and this is an animated ggplot, so that's why we use nmsave. So you do the function, and you just like give the path, right? So the path here, I basically got outside of the code folder, got inside the output folder, and then gave it a name. Again, the name is arbitrary. You can name it whatever you want. I just named animated_prod, but you do have to give the .gif extension at the end. Okay, so Shekar had a feedback here. Maybe the GIF Sky, maybe that's how it's pronounced, package helped to produce the animated map in GIF. So maybe we're not going to get into that in class, but if anyone is interested, if this is, the reason why I wanted to show you this is because I think it's a really cool data visualization, especially with geospatial data. And so if you are interested to explore this package that Shekar is saying, feel free to do that. If you have issues, I can still help you. We're just not going to cover that in class. So if you use this function here, that will export your GIF, and then you can use that, can really bring that into, I think you can bring GIFs into a Word file. I don't think I tried, but maybe that would work. I know for sure you can, post this on Twitter if you want to show a cool, animated map in Twitter, you can do that. So I just wanted to show this function to you all. And now I think that for all of you, you were able to get the interactive map. So that's good. On the interactive map side, there's no way we can export just that by itself. The way that we export it is basically by rendering, creating an HTML file, and then having that interactive map as part of the HTML file. And then, of course, you can share the HTML file. And as long as you have, let me go all the way up to show you. So here on the YAML portion of the script, I had this part here that says embed resources true, meaning that when it renders and creates the HTML, everything that's needed for that HTML is embedded in it. So if you just share that HTML with someone, they would be able to open it and see your interactive map and interact with that map actually. So I just wanted to just tell you that if you want to export the animation, the GIF, you can do this. If you want to export the interactive map, it has to be through HTML. Okay, any comments or questions or issues related to this specifically? Okay, I don't hear anything, so let's just keep going. Let's see here. I have a list of topics I want to talk to you today. Okay, so one very important thing that I want to mention. When I was helping different students yesterday, I noticed in a few times that some of you had the install packages for any of them, like doesn't really matter which package, but you have an install packages function active, right? So not commented off with the hashtag, but active. That is, so, just to remind you, we only install packages once, right? Maybe another time to update the package, but that is, maybe once per semester, perhaps. But once you install that package, please comment off that line by adding the hashtag. This first is going to help you that if you're using the play button on the chunk, it's going to make sure that you don't reinstall every time you play the chunk, but also for rendering. if you're rendering and you have this like that, you know that some packages may prompt you to say yes, no, or something like that. If a package does that and it's available to be run, your rendering is not going to work. So a good tip across the board is, we do the install packages and I leave them in the code especially for you, so you can just, make that available, install it, and then make it unavailable by commenting it off again. But please make sure that you don't have any install packages functions active in your script, especially for rendering. And this is also valid for, so we use, I think, the remotes package, because the remotes package allows us to install packages from GitHub. So it has the function called install_GitHub that we use to install, I think, the USDA boundaries data. This, what I said about install packages, also applies to the install GitHub function. So if you have that on your script, make sure you comment that off. Okay, so another tip that I notice in a few different cases as well, and I really want to drill down this concept, and it's very important that you get it. I'm just close to the animation here because it's getting me distracted. So, and I just want to go through again the concept of the project itself, right? So if a few things that we've been doing a lot of this, but I still notice that some of you maybe are not following exactly. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, because this is something simple simple to do, but can cause you issues when importing and exporting files. And just to avoid any of those issues, I just want to teach you the best way that you can do it and not have potential issues happening with you down the road, especially as some of these skills, I hope and I think that you're learning here in this class, but the goal is that you extend these skills to your research and to your careers. So really creating some good habits around programming, which is related to projects, right? So if you look here on top of, on my case, I had the 02NAS project. The reason why it's named 02NAS is because that was the folder that I created the project in, right? So some of you may say here code, which I saw a few times yesterday. If that's the case, it's because you probably created the project inside the code folder, which is not what we should be doing, right? So I just want to show you here. So if I come on my project here, right, on the Files tab, I click on that R blue button. It takes me to the main folder of the project, which you can see right here. It's 02NAS because the folder is called 02NAS. So that's what the project was named after. And then I have my code data and output at the same level as my rproj icon. Okay. A quick trick here that I think is useful. So even though here we can see the files in RStudio, but it's not very, like if you want to move or copy and paste, you don't do that through RStudio. You have to do that through your like file system on your computer, right? So a nice way to get to that is if you click on this engine button here and you go on show folder in new window, at least this is what appears on a Mac. I think it should be similar on the PC. It actually opens this folder on your file system. So again, I want to get outside of this project, right? So this is my main folder of the class. You see here, we have the 01 data wrangling folder. If I go inside that, we have the project file, code data output. I'm gonna go back again out to the main course folder. We have the 02NAS project, which if I go inside of that, I have the 02NAS rproj icon, code data and output. If you have the 02NAS and you go inside of it and you don't see the rproj at this level, it may be inside of one of the other folders. So maybe the code or data or output. What I want to ask you to do is to move that outside of the subfolders and move into the main project folder, which is this level. Please go ahead and do that if that's not the case with you at this time. You don't have to, I mean, if you want to rename the project at that point, so let's say if you created the project inside of your code folder, it is named code. So if once you move this outside of in this level here, feel free to rename that to 02 NAS, because then the project name is informative, right? You know that project is related to the NAS dataset or the NAS analysis. Also, something that I noticed that maybe I wasn't super clear. So the way that I envision your folder to look on your side is, so right now I am inside the main course folder, right? So every time that you download the new GitHub version, you can just, so you download that to your computer, or you pull if you're using Git, and then you move that folder inside here, right? Inside of the main folder of the course. And again, please remember this. The GitHub folder should not have your personal files that you develop in it. It's just a way for me to share with you the files that we use in class. So you download the GitHub. If you want, I mean, you don't even have to bring that into the course folder if you don't want to, but I think that's easier to organize things. You can just move that in here. It's going to have the same name as the one previously. So you can just overwrite, because again, do not save your files inside the GitHub folder that you download. That is just for me to share files with you. Because then once you have that here, and let's say you just overwrite on top of the older version, you're just going to come in here, copy something that I share with you. So let's say I share with you a partial code. You just come here, copy that partial code, and then you move this partial code into your project that you created on your side. So it would be the 02 NAS, for example. Come in here and paste that into the code folder, right? So again, remember, do not save anything that you do on your side on the GitHub folder. If you're doing that, you're going to have to reorganize things to make sure that you follow along for the remaining of the course. And we're going to be developing new projects, right? So we started with the project 1 was data wrangling, the 2 was NAS, and then next one is going to be, the one that we're going to start working with EO monitor data. That's going to be the 03 EO monitor data. So we're going to be developing different projects on this main course folder, and each one of them is going to have their main folder, is going to have our project icon associated with them, and then a code data and output. Okay, so again, I know that this can be a little bit confusing, but if you walk through a few times, I hope it's going to start clicking, because again, this structure is very simple to set up, but it's going to be very powerful for you to develop this habit of doing, of doing it this way. So that's why I'm really being picky about it, and I will be picky about it when you submit your projects and mini project. I will be looking at that to see if you have the proper structure, and if you don't, you're going to lose points. So make sure you get this point down. If you have questions, if you have issues, if it's not clear, let me know. I definitely want to make sure that you all get this point. Any questions about this? Did someone have a question?
So you say within the project there should be code, data, and output, right?
Sorry, it was kind of hard to hear. Can you, I don't know where the mic is in Athens, but. Do you want to?
Just talk very loud.
So you said within the project there should be a code, data, and output file, right?
Yeah, so let's say if you go again on the 02 NAS on my side, it has a code, data, and output folders. So that's right.
I have also a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see like we saved the HTML file in the data section, in the data folder. For me, I was thinking that maybe that is an output file, like a report. So it should go to the output. Is that okay?
So the HTML is actually going to be saved by default on the same subfolder where the QMD that generates that HTML is. So if you look, like for me, you know, the QMD file is a code file, so it should be on the code folder. So that's where my HTMLs are. And this is also what should be on your side. So if your HTML is being saved on your data folder, maybe it's because your code is actually inside the data folder, which shouldn't be, right? Should be on the code folder.
Oh, sorry, I was saying this. I was thinking like the HTML is an output of the project. Maybe it should be on the output folder, but it's linked to the code folder.
Right, and that's a great point, and I totally agree with you. It's the HTML is definitely an output. I think there's probably a way that we, like, if we wanted to have the HTML saved on the output folder, I think there's probably a way that we can do that. I didn't show you how to do it, or I didn't really, you know, even thought about it from that perspective. But I totally agree with you that the HTML is an output. Like for now, it's okay if that lives on your code folder because it's just going on the same folder where the QMD is. And since I didn't show you how to change that, I'm not going to require you to have the HTML on the output. But that is a great point, and one that, you know, if you do want to have that HTML exported to the output folder, there's probably an option out there that we can explore to do that. But I will not be requiring for you to do that specifically. Yeah, thanks for bringing that point. Okay, so again, I hope that we cleared the project setup and all that. If you still have issues, if you're on your side, things don't look like on mine as far as having the main project folder with the subfolders code data output and the rproj at this level, let me know and we can figure that out. Okay, something else that I want to just to remind you, I think we talked about this, but I want to remind you about projects is, so let's say I'm going to close my, sorry, someone had a question? Maybe not. So, so I just want to show you here, so let's say you don't have RStudio open, right? And you want to reopen a given project. So let's say you want to reopen the 02 NAS. You can go to the folder where that project was created. So where the rproj is. And if you just double click on that rproj, it's going to launch an RStudio session focus on that project, which is pretty cool, right? And again, as you develop, as you have all of your research, study, analysis that you're doing, you can always switch very quickly from one project to the next. So, you know, right now we're talking about NAS. Later today, I'm going to be updating the website, which is I do through ARM and using Quarto files as well. I'm just going to change that project right here very quickly. And then if I do different analysis, I just, you know, switch very quickly. So I just wanted to remind you of that. Okay, so let's talk about the mini project. I did update the GitHub last night to include a couple different things, and one of them was the mini project. I just want to, so if you download again the GitHub, you're gonna be able to see it. On my side, this is what you're gonna. I mean, it looks like this to me is gonna look like this to you probably. But there is a folder now called 06 mini project. If you open that, it has a mini project.qmd file in there. That's going to be the file you're going to be using to work on the mini project. I just opened that up here so you can see this is exactly what each one of you are going to be seeing. So this is a QMD file. I have some instructions here. Please make sure that you follow these instructions very closely, especially like, again, with setting up the project and all that. So what I did, I'm just going to render this so we can see, you know, it is a QMD file. You're going to turn this to me as a QMD, as an HTML file. I have that in the instructions. So here's how it looks like. I have some instructions for you. There's going to be some mini project information. which I will show you that in a second. So let's do this. Please go ahead and download the GitHub repo right now. And at least like have that QMD file open on your RStudio, because I want to show you some things that you have to take note of. So you're gonna have to, so my goal here is that each one of you is going to download a different USDA NAS data set. So it's going to be a different crop and a different, I guess, variable, right? So we were looking at soybeans production. Now, each one of you are going to have a different crop and a different variable. So it could be planted area, harvested area, production, yield, other things, and for different crops. So none of you have overlapping projects. They're all different data sets that you're going to have to be retrieving, but you're all going to answer the same questions, okay? So the thing is, because the success of this project at the individual level for you all depends on downloading the proper data from USDA NAS, I do want to ask you that go through the instructions here, make your selections that you're downloading. When you're done with your selections, take a print screen of that USDA NAS window and send to me. You can go ahead and download that data if you want to, but before you start actually working with that data on your side, send me that print screen, because I want to make sure that you made the proper selections to get to the proper data. So once you download that data, just like we did in class, right? So we just went to quick stats. I have the link here on the HTML, on the QMD, sorry. So we're going to download that data set, and then we're going to be doing the set. So I did not, on the setup, EDA, and wrangling, I did not leave anything for you. You're going to have to develop from scratch. Again, we did all this in class, so you can use the class scripts as a resource, but you will have to develop on your own, right? So we're going to be, so on the setup is where you load the packages and you import the data that you downloaded from NAS. On EDA, you may have to be checking for like column names, variable classes, things that we checked in class as well. And on the wrangling is where you're going to have to be doing, some of the wrangling, or maybe different wrangling, right? So you're going to be working with different data sets than we did in class that may have their own perks as far as like how things are named or what variables you need. So this is going to require you not to simply, you can use the class code as a resource, but you're also probably going to have to make some modifications and adaptations to that class code to make it work. It's not going to be copy and paste and run. It's going to run completely fine without you having to make changes. You will have to make changes to adapt it. And that's where I'm going to see if you actually learn what we did in class, or if you maybe miss something. This is the place that you can really think through what we did in class and then do on a different data set. And then I have a list of questions for you to answer, right? So I have, I think, 14 questions. So some questions are related to like what were the minimum maximum years reported on your data. This is just, a table that you're going to be exploring. And if I say plot, then obviously I don't expect a table, I expect a plot. So we will still probably have to generate a table that then goes into ggplot, just like we did in class. And also something I want to make a strong point here is, in class, we were just creating the output and leaving at that. Here, that's not going to be sufficient. Like you will maybe create a table that tells me what's the minimum maximum years reporting your data, but I want you to spell out, I want you to write a sentence saying the minimum year was X, the maximum year was Y. Just the output itself, just the table and plot are not enough. Think of the tables and plots just helping you to find the answer, but then you have to write down what the answer is with words, right? Don't assume that I'm going to look at the table and that's your answer. You have to write it down after the table. Don't forget about that. So after you go through all this, you're going to have to render this file. So again, you will have every chunk will have to be able to run by itself, right? You cannot have, if a chunk is producing an error, that's not going to work when you render. So make sure that all of your chunks are clean and good to go before you render. So we will produce the HTML, and you're going to rename that HTML, and that's what you're going to submit is the HTML. And you send that to my email. I have here by February 15th. That was with the intention that we would have gotten to this on last class. So we actually, it's not going to be February 15th. I guess I uploaded this to GitHub too early. So it's actually going to be on Friday the 17th. So take note of that as well. So instead of 15th, it's going to be Friday the 17th, meaning that you have 2 weeks. I do anticipate that you're going to run into issues, even though everything that I'm asking are things we did in class. You're just going to have to adapt. I still anticipate that you're going to run into issues, and that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly normal. So I do urge you to not leave this to the last moment, because if you start running into issues, you're going to depend on my availability to help you, which of course I want to make myself available. But if you come on February, so it's still on the 17th, if you come on the 16th and you have a big issue, that's not going to work, right? So I do urge you to at least start working on this early. And again, when you go through and you retrieve the data that I'm asking you to retrieve, share with me that print screen, and I will give you the thumbs up or the green light saying, yes, this is what I was expecting for you to select. Go ahead and start the analysis. Okay. Let me see what I had here. So one thing I want to stress here is part of your class grade is participation, right? And that involves both in-class participation, but also GitHub participation, both asking questions and especially helping others if you can, if you know how to help them. So for this project, for the mini project, if you have issues, especially if it's related to code, feel free to post your issue as an issue on GitHub. And I'm doing that because you're all going to be going through the same experience, just with different data sets. And I do anticipate you're going to have similar issues. So if you have an issue with the code, have a question about the code itself, post that on GitHub, because maybe someone else already went through the same issue, already knows the answer and can help you. And again, I will always be a resource, but I want you all to also have each other to help each other, right? So Google is your friend, and GitHub and your colleagues are your friends as well for this. I will always give a little time when someone posts a question about the mini project on GitHub. I will give some time to let if anyone else can help you. And if no one else helps you within a few hours, I will jump in and help you. But I do want to stress again, participation, including on GitHub, is going to be part of our grade. So make sure you use each other for that. Okay, so I do want to show you something here. I just want to close here, go back to my mini project here. I will change on my side that is due on the 17th. Make sure you get that part as well. And I want to show you now. So if you, if you were not able to get this file yet, you will have to take note of some things here. And let me just see where I have that on my side. I think it was here, setup, yeah. Okay, let me launch this.
Dr. Bastos, I do have a question.
Yes.
So is this what we'll be doing during our class time until it's turned in, or how is class going to look now with this project?
So the project is, at least, so my intention is that you do this outside of class hours. If I start seeing that you're all having, maybe like all struggling with a certain aspect that may be worth bringing into class time, I will do that. But initially, I don't plan to do this in class. It's going to be outside of class. Okay, so here's what I want you to see. So I used the survey responses that you gave me as far as what crop you're interested, and I really tried to match crops and topics with people that are working with certain things. If you were not matched specifically with a crop or variable that you were super excited about, I'm sorry about that. There were only a given number of variables that we could do the same exercise as we did in class for this project coming from NAS. So if you were not able to, so this is what I wanted to take note of. So look at your name here. I can publish this table on the website later, but I haven't yet. So for now, just look at your name, take note of your commodity and your category. So if you think of it in class, our commodity was soybeans, our category was production, right? So there is no soybean production being assigned to any of you at this point, because that would just not be fair. But we do have some soybean variables here as well. So we're going to be working with the crops pecan, corn, cotton, peanuts, soybeans, and wheat. And then looking at different things like harvested area, planted area, yield, production. In the case of cotton, there were some more variables available for cotton. So things like, I think there's one that is, oh, where is it? Maybe it's not here anymore. Yeah, I think that's not here anymore. But there was one that at some point I looked into that was number of gins per county. But anyways, I guess you get the gist. Just make sure that you take note of your commodity and your category. And whenever you go into the mini project QMD file, a few things that I want you to note here. So you will change your subtitle here on the YAML part of the script, which again is between the 3 dashes. You will change the subtitle to your commodity in your category. So let's say soybeans production. And you will change the author to your full name right there, because then that's going to appear when you render it. And whenever you go, and you can follow the instructions here, I do have instructions for setting up a new project. So a new folder, a new code data output, a new RStudio project icon inside of that, all for this. And after you do that, you will move this mini project.qmd inside of the code folder. I have those instructions here for you. But just to remind you to make those changes here and go through on your own, on this project. If you have questions, again, post on GitHub. And this is due in 2 weeks. So again, keep that in mind. Even though everything I'm asking are things we did in class, I will expect for you to have to do some adaptation, especially under wrangling, right? So under wrangling, you're going to have to do some adaptation, and that's where issues may arise. So make sure you keep that in mind when you're setting up your time frame for this. I do have a question here towards the end to create an animated map. And this was before we had all the issues that we just went through. So just to recap that.
Sorry, Professor.
Yes.
If requesting to change the crop I want to work on, should I write an email or is something you can? What should I do like? For example, for me, I was like requesting to work on pecan instead of cotton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you just go to, sorry, go ahead. I couldn't quite hear. Try one more time.
Oh, this is Dennis. I'm Dennis. Yeah.
Yes. Hi, Dennis.
Yes, I feel like I'm working on cotton, but currently I'm not working on cotton. I'll be working on pecan. So I was like requesting to work on pecan instead of cotton.
So I think with the issue with pecan, yeah, I mean, let's let's talk about it after class, because I think my issue here was that there were a few more people working with pecans. Well, okay, so let's see. So Alexis, I gave Alexis pecan, and I think I was trying to keep like within the same crop, like an undergrad and a graduate student. I think that's why maybe I didn't assign you the pecan. But Alexis, are you in Athens right now?
Yeah.
Okay, would you mind to work on cotton? Let's see here, cotton yield, and um, switch with Dennis.
Sure, I don't care.
Okay, all right. So Dennis, yeah, let's just swap then cotton yield from you and pecan area bearing with Alexis then.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I guess this was all I had for the mini project. So make sure that you go through the instructions and especially download or make your selection on USDNS and send me that print screen early in the process, because then I give you the thumbs up saying you can go ahead and start your actual data analysis side of things. And again, this is due in 2 weeks. And before we finish today, I also want to share with you another thing. So on Monday, we're going to start working on yield monitor data and cleaning that type of data. And we're going to talk more about it then. But before we start that, I have an assignment for you. It should be a pretty straightforward assignment. There's no coding. It's mostly a reading assignment. But let me just show you. It's also on the GitHub. So if you download it just now, you're going to have that already. So it's under the assignments folder. It's assignment number 4. And it is a reading assignment. So I gave you a paper for you to read. It's called Yield Editor 2.0, Software for Automated Removal of Yield Map Errors. And I gave you a QMD with questions. Okay, so I'm going to launch that QMD here. Again, you're going to have to write your full name on the author. And I have 5 questions for you. Okay, so based on that paper. The only thing is that I wish I could give you more time, but the problem is, since we're gonna be doing the exercise on the coding on exercise on Monday already, I really wanted you to be able to go through this paper and think through it before we actually do the exercise. So I'm giving you a deadline here of by the end of Monday, so Monday 11:59 p.m. If for some reason you're traveling this weekend, or you're traveling today, I don't know. If for some reason you cannot make this, because I know it's short notice, and you have a good reason to not be able to make it, maybe you're already committed to something else, it's going to take your whole time between now and Monday afternoon, let me know. We can talk about it. I can give you some extra days if you need. But if possible, I would hope that at least most of you can go through this and answer these 5 questions based on the paper. Okay. So I have some instructions here for you to submit. You're going to just basically answer your questions right here, right? And this is the same for the mini project. You will answer them right on the QMD. So just answer them right here, render it, send me the HTML. That's it. So again, the assignment is already up. It's due next Monday by 11:59 p.m. If you don't think you can make it, let me know today. We can accommodate that. I hope most of you can make it. It's going to be very important for you to understand this paper, because we're going to be basically replicating all that this paper is saying, but with code, or not all, but most of it with code, which I think is a good background then to have. And again, mini project due on 2 weeks. For you to go on USDNS Quick Stats and do the selections, this takes 5 minutes. It's something that should be pretty straightforward for you to do that and send me your print screen before you actually start working on it. So that's all I have for today. Lots of conversation, I guess. Anyone has any last questions before we depart? Okay, I don't hear anything. We're already at the hour. again, if you do have questions, issues, if you have questions about the project, about the assignment, let me know. And if not, then I'll see you all on Monday.